Welcome to Text to Life. Today, what we are going to be doing is we're going to be showing you some strategies to take text, a written source, whether it's like an email, a report, a script, a presentation that you're working on, and showing you how to present it in a way that actually sounds natural and human. Because most likely, if you even try to read something out loud in any language, there's a great chance that your reading voice is different than your speaking voice. And so we're going to be really interested today in trying to get all of that situated with some strategies that I think you'll be able to apply, not just to times when you're presenting or on stage or talking with people, but just general communication strategies as well. We have a couple people with us. I know someone's also having some technical stuff, so hopefully they can link their mic and their camera. But here are our students. Thank you all for joining me today. So I want to just kind of outline our course today. Some things that we're going to be discussing. First of all, we're going to be talking about some strategies for use of pitch. We're going to be talking about thought groups, how are we separating things when we're talking. We're talking about some elements of contrast, including speed and volume, and if we have time for some others, we will also mention those too. But probably one that's going to have the greatest impact for us today is going to be this concept of pitch. Okay, and when we talk about pitch, what we're really talking about is trying to increase your high range and your low range and implementing all of it. All of it is necessary to get the most natural sound and to keep your listener engaged. This is how in English we create separation between our words and our phrases. Okay, this is not optional. Okay, so when we talk about pitch, some things we want to consider. We want to consider our highs and our lows. So here are just some quick exercises you can do to practice your range and seeing what your limits are, and then also trying to expand them. Okay. Emmanuel, I'll start with you. Let's just kind of do our first exercises going from a mid-range to a low. Can you try doing this for me using the word this? Can you say this, 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 this?
This.
And you could hear each one of those was a slightly lower step. Each of them was at a different level. Emmanuel, let's try to do it 10 times now. So let's double what you just did. It's like this, 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 this.
This.
Good. Yes. And what we're looking for is we want to make sure that every single movement down is distinct. We don't want to do like this, 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 because that's the same pitch over and over again. We also want to make sure that our increments are just that between them is regular. So we don't want to do like this, 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 this. Like that's like bouncing all around. Some steps are small, some steps are large. We want it to be regular in our descent. Okay. Amanda, do you have any questions about that as you were doing that?
No, it's hard to keep the breath without going for the lower ones. It's a bit of a challenge to do.
Sounds like we just need some more practice.
Sounds
Get
like
some
we do.
skills. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, I would encourage doing these sorts of scales every day. If you think of like people's like singers, if you think of singers in training, what do? They just run through this stuff all the time. Okay. Just practice scale, 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 scale. That's the warm up. Um, let's try to do the opposite a little bit. So, yeah, I'm going to slide to you. Can we go from our mid to high? Can you do like this, 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 this?
This.
Oh, very good. Okay. Let's try to double that. Can we do 10? Can I do 10 even? Let's try. It's like this. Can you do that?
Can't do that. This.
Very good. Okay. Yeah, and I'm going to push you. Can you now try doing your high to your mid? It's like this.
This.
Good. Okay. You guys are
Thank
making this
you.
look easy, but for people watching this, if you struggle, that is perfectly expected, in all honesty. We're just very fortunate to have Emmanuel and Yan starting us off. David, I'm going to
We've been
slide to
practicing.
you. You've been practicing. That is true. So these guys are also in our group. So this is not their first rodeo. David, we're going to slide down to you. So another strategy that we can do is we can link everything together. So if you find that the steps are a little bit difficult with pitch, another strategy you can do is doing something like this. David, can you say this?
This.
Okay, now can you take from your low back to your midpoints like this?
This.
Okay, and then can you do mid-high? So like this?
This.
And then from high back to your mids, like this.
This.
Okay, so now what I'd like you to do, the ultimate exercise is to try to link everything together. So we're going to go low, high, mids, like this.
This.
Yeah, so basically, this is something I would encourage everyone to practice, is just try to loop it. It's like, and like going on a little roller coaster. Okay.
Riff.
You know? And again, the goal is these are all warm-up exercises. Hello to Hijina saying happy Sunday. Happy Sunday to
Hey,
everybody.
Gina.
She's watching with us. And then Tina's checking in.
Hi, Tina.
Hey, Tina.
Sorry, I'm late.
You're good. Tina, we've just been discussing some pitch stuff. Not to just throw you in the fire, but did you want a quick exercise?
Oh, okay.
Okay. Some vocal training in the morning. So what I'd like you to do, kind of like just what David was doing. So we're going to go low, then we're going to go high, then we're going to go mid, and we're just going to link everything together. So again, this. Can you do that for me?
This.
Very good. You guys all make this look so easy. And there's a great chance if you're watching this afterwards, it's not going to be that easy for you. So I would say also try to find your range, because typically what we see with students is for some students, the midpoint to the high point, that's going to be the difficulty. Then for other students, the midpoint to the low, that's going to be the difficulty. The ability to do the whole range, that's the goal. But if you notice that, oh, my mid-range to my high is very difficult. My mid-range to my low is very easy. Then that can let you know where your areas of strength are, but they can also let you know the areas where you want to target. Does anyone have any questions for me about pitch so far? Why is this pitch stuff really even important? Well, pitch is going to be extremely essential for us at the sentence level, and we need to now discuss a topic that is known as a thought group. So I just asked you, like, can you see my screen? Okay, let's imagine that this is my sentence. And let's imagine that I'm going to group this into two thought groups. You may be like, what is a thought group? A thought group is basically a group of words that's going to go together before your next group of words. When we talk in any language, we talk in thought groups. We do not talk one word at a time in general. Okay. Thought groups are usually separated by, or they can be separated by a slight pause. But probably the more telling feature of a thought group from an American English context is that when you change a thought group, we want to change the pitch level. Change the thought group, change the pitch. I just did it right there. I did it 3 times, in fact. Change the thought group. Notice I'm talking right here. This is where my level is. Everything I say is at this level. Now I go down here. Now everything I say is at this level, and everything I say is here. And now I go down here. Now everything I say is at this level. It's just like those scales that we did. This is where I talk. 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 And so on and so forth. Okay. So we can see that those little scales, if we think of it not as individual sounds, but we can do entire groups of words at that pitch range. Okay. What you may also see is that for every thought group kind of has its own ceiling and it has its own floor. So for this thought group right here, here, that's probably my ceiling right there. For this thought group right. So there's my floor. So I got my ceiling, my floor right here. There's my ceiling and my floor for that thought group. Versus if my thought group is now here, if my thought group is now here, now, there's my floor. Now, here. Now, here, this is my ceiling for this thought group. Now, this is my ceiling and my floor for this thought group. For this, this is my new low. Here. This is my new ceiling. So every single thought group, you can think of it having it's its own floor, it's its own level, has its own ceiling, has its own floor, has its own ceiling, has its own floor, has its own ceiling, has its own floor. Okay, because if you just keep bouncing around like this, people are going to have a really hard time understanding you. Okay. Conversely, if everything I say is at the same pitch level for every single sentence and I just keep talking like this for my listener starts to become very difficult to understand. We don't want that either because there's not enough contrast.
How about we start high, we go low. We start high, we go low. So you normally start high when you're talking.
I think we have to understand high is not an
Pitch-wise.
objective term. But even then, high is not an objective term. It's subjective. It's comparing. If something's high, it means something's low, right? So it's always in comparison to something else. So when we have thought groups, let's maybe look at this sentence here and maybe that'll clarify some things.
Okay.
So can you see? So maybe let's imagine I stress the word see. Can you see? And then maybe I'll stress the word screen. Okay. So the general pattern, let's imagine that I want my first thought group to be at a higher pitch. And then I want my second thought group to be at a lower pitch. So the first thought group maybe is going to be like somewhere around here. And then my second thought group maybe somewhere around here. So I'm going to start here, like, can you see? And then the second part maybe down here. My screen, okay? It's like something like that. Okay. What else do we need to know about thought groups? In a thought group, there's always one word that's going to receive heavy stress. Okay, so in this case, it's C. What does that tell me? That means that C has to go higher in pitch. In English, we either go up or we go down. So that means that the only place where I'm going to really, in general, go up in pitch is going to be on that word there. So I would expect the can to start lowering a pitch, you to start dropping. And in fact, before stress, we often go down a lot. It's like, can you see? Can you see? Can you see? So it's like, can you see? Can you see? But the reality is I don't even have to go that high on C. I can also say, can you see? Can you see? You know? But depending on the level of emphasis, I could go crazy high and say, like, can you see? Can you see? You know, so it all depends kind of on the context and things. But the general movement is down, down, up. Okay. Versus my next thought group, the stress is on screen. So now my movement is going to be my screen. Okay. My screen. Okay. So again, my first thought group higher. Can you see my second thought group? My screen okay? Can you see my screen okay? Can you see my screen okay? Can you see my screen okay? Questions there.
But we can use too much of a drop off between these thought groups. Like you can go, can you see my screen okay? Like it's a bit too much.
I think it depends on context. I think it entirely depends on context. It can draw attention, but drawing attention isn't necessarily a bad thing if I want to draw attention.
Okay.
It's very rare where something is always wrong.
We could also drag the word that's being stressed before we get to this, the syllable that's going way down before our stress syllable, right? Like if we suddenly decide to stress the two next word, then the word that is like coming, but we can, instead of knowing what we're gonna stress, if we suddenly decide to stress a word, we can drag the word before it, right? Can you see my screen okay? Instead of my screen okay? That's a little bit faster than dragging it. But we also have that movement there too.
Potentially, your listener may actually hear that as a separate thought group, just because it's so drastically different. Potentially, which isn't necessarily a problem. You know, but that is something that could occur. we'll talk about speed and things like that in a moment as well.
What's the difference between pitch, tone, and melody? I didn't understand.
Good question. Pitch and tone can have some connection to them. Tone can also be in relation to the movement. It's hard because sometimes these words get used interchangeably with things. Like sometimes, if we think about tonal language, a lot of times, if we apply it to English, tone references the intonation. Like if you say like a rising tone, you can think like that sounds like a rising intonation from an American English perspective, like this. So where you move from a low pitch to a higher pitch, or when you move from like a higher pitch to a lower pitch, that's like a falling tone or falling intonation. It's like this is moving down. I think melody is more reference to when you have longer phrases and you start to kind of see what's the cadence.
Oh, like the different pitches all together.
Yeah, it's kind of combining everything together.
Got you.
We had a quick question about stress before we take a look at marking off some thought groups. So Berta's here. What's up, Berta? Last week I said, told Dave I haven't seen Anne for a while. Stressing Anne, I thought sounded good. Yeah, I think that's natural stress. I think one of the things we see in English usually doesn't like stressing adverbs of time, which we have to be careful because some languages we come from like to stress those, but in English we tend not to stress. So I wouldn't expect the for a while to get stressed unless you're really trying to emphasize that. Okay, so we talked about thought groups and we talked about pitch. I think it's time to start actually applying this to some text and some reading. Okay. Give me one sec, give you guys back your screen. So today we're going to be taking a look at a poem. We're not going to be looking at the whole poem because it's a little bit of a long piece. This is a poem that's entitled Sleep. It's by a poet named Ellen Bryant Voigt. Give me a moment and I will show it to you. This poem's going to be a little bit tricky for us because it doesn't have punctuation, which means that we're going to have to really make sure that when we're making our thought groups that we're thinking about how are we trying to convey our information. Okay, so here is the section of the poem that we're going to be targeting today. And again, our first focus is going to be on pitch, and then we'll talk about some other elements of contrast as well. People have been waiting for poems. That's what I like to hear. Yes. Okay. So let's do this. To get started, our focus for right now is just going to be trying to get down to sleep right here. Take a moment just to read 1, 2, 3, 4, those first 4 lines to yourself. And as you read it to yourself, I want you to be thinking, where would you be? Actually, before we even discuss that, let's talk a little bit about what you think the emotion of the speaker is in these first 4 lines. What is the central emotion?
Can't sleep.
I see it. Anxiety.
Yes, is anxious,
Anxiety?
can't sleep.
Okay. Anxiety. Do we get anything else?
But I think it's quite the opposite of anxiety, especially by reading the last sentence. Who used to be championously like he was anxious and lazy, but now he's gonna get up. I haven't read the rest, but it's like he's motivated instead of being anxious.
Potentially side of motivate. Okay.
Yeah.
We'll talk more about emotions and things later, but I want to get a general vibe because that may affect how we read this. I heard anxiety, potentially motivated. Tina, any thoughts?
Or maybe confused, you know. Maybe he's just confused.
I think we're all a little confused.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Depressed?
Okay. When you say depressed, is there a reason that makes you think that?
Heavy frost used to be a champion sleep. Now, apparently, he
Like
doesn't.
Hmm.
he used to be like at peace, you know, like a peace of mind, and now he's not. So I was kind of like regretting that.
Okay. So I think one of the things when you guys, if you ever have to read something out loud, whether it's a poem in this case, but maybe a presentation, maybe it's a report, maybe you're telling a story, maybe you're just telling a story to a friend. I think thinking about what's the emotion you're trying to convey is going to be really key because that determines everything. That determines what the words you're going to emphasize. That's going to determine the pitch range you're going to use. That's going to determine where you're going to break for pauses. That's going to determine it really determines everything because people aren't going to remember the specific things you say, but they will remember how you make them feel. So everything that we do is in service to that feeling. Okay. If I look at that, for instance, if I look at this very first line, what do you think is the most important word in that first line? And I know we're getting kind of heavy in this. I'm like literary theory. We
Another,
will get to pronunciation. Don't worry. David,
another, because it's a repetitive, good or bad
another.
thing occurring again.
Heavy frost die.
Heavy frost, die. Emmanuel, Tina, any thoughts?
I was thinking of another as well,
Another.
like another
And
one.
another. Hmm. That's probably the one I would lean towards as well. I think that another is doing a lot of work. There's this sense of experience and not pleasant experience. I don't know if so we talked earlier about emotions. I don't know if I necessarily get anxiety or motivation from this, but I get kind of a sense of almost like a melancholy, or like frustration or resignation, like this again, like horrible familiarity with something. That's kind of the vibe that I get. Okay. So let's kind of just keep that sort of knowledge in the back of our minds for a moment. Does anyone have any questions for me so far? Whether you're with us in the chat or you're with us in the classroom. Does anyone have any questions for me so far?
How are we breaking down into thought groups? We follow like the actual text.
What do you think is going to be most? Let's admit. So you're about to deliver this to a listener. What do you think is going to be the most effective strategy?
Not being predictable.
Okay. So let's mark off some thought groups. It could be a team effort to a degree as best as possible. Okay. But if you
Can I
had
ask
to mark off some
something?
thought groups, yes, David.
Punctuations are deliberately wiped out, or is this
I
because
think
there's
with
no
this,
period
I,
or
th-
dot, you know?
I think with this degree of missing punctuation, we can assume
Yeah.
it's intentional. Okay. Thought groups. Let's maybe just kind of take turns. Emmanuel, I'll start with you. Where would you like your first thought group to go?
After frost.
Okay. I think that's a logical choice. Yeah, and where would you like your next thought group to go?
Die.
Okay. Tina?
Away? I don't think I understand this line.
Tell me more about that.
Like, what's the relationship between the first line and second line? What is the groundhog, for instance, the bear is deep in sleep?
Does anyone want
I'm
help?
trying to, because I noticed some of her lines and
Mhm.
with the connection with the next line.
Mm-hmm.
So I was trying to think if the first line connects with the second or not, and I don't think I understand enough.
Is this a haiku? Like an example
This
of
is not a
nature?
haiku.
Like the
Tina, let's.
bear won't wake up.
There are
It's like
there are certainly nature words in here. Haikus are going to be a very different form.
no.
Tina, if you had to add punctuation, how would you punctuate this?
Just period after away.
Okay. To me, it's almost like a rhetorical question. So I may even
It's
make
like a question.
Okay. Tina, keep talking to me. What other punctuation would you add? Just for like the first 2 lines.
Maybe comma after groundhog, after instance, a period after sleep.
The only thing I might change, I might put a period here.
Oh, okay.
Because to me, I'm seeing 2 different examples.
Mm,
The groundhog, then the
yeah.
bear. Is this helping at all or not really? Are we still confused?
I'm confused what groundhog is doing here. Like, what is, for instance of what?
Groundhog is sleeping.
Hibernating.
If I had a period, it's like the central question for me in this first line is
What?
we have a speaker who's
doesn't
experiencing frost.
die or fly away?
Mm-hmm.
We're
We're in
talking about
frost. What happens in the winter?
hibernating creatures, like a groundhound or the bear.
I mean, in some ways, we're actually talking about the opposite, right? We're talking about what doesn't die. So, heavy frost. Season, what season are we in?
Fall.
Winner.
I'm leaning more towards winter. I mean, potentially fall, but winter.
Oh, I thought we
okay.
were asking what season are we actually? And
Fair. Fair. For our northern hemisphere folks. So then we get the question, what doesn't die? Because what happens in the winter? Things die or things fly away. So I'm thinking, what are some things that actually don't just die or fly away, that stay here? Oh, well, there's the groundhog. They're bears. You know, so like, this is
They're
the way
asleep. It's kind of like they're dead, you know, when you're asleep. Sort of.
I mean, in the immortal words of Nas, sleep is the cousin of death. However, you know, so that's kind of the question. Like the way I read this poem is it's very almost stream of consciousness. If you're not familiar with stream of consciousness, it's just like when we think, you know, we can start off thinking about a paper that we have due, you know, like a project that we have due tomorrow. And then like 2 minutes later, we could be thinking about that time that we were on a Ferris wheel at an amusement park when we were 5. Like the mind can just make enormous leaps in a very short amount of time. So the way I see this is very stream of consciousness, like thinking, looking out your window, be like, another heavy frost. What doesn't die or fly? There's the groundhog. There's the bear. I'm thinking a lot about sleep. Bears are sleep. You know, like this is like I'm seeing a lot of these kind of just like logical jump. Okay. So that's how I kind of been piecing things together. Tina, does that help at all?
Yeah, I think I just don't have a brain for poems. It's okay.
I have thoughts on that, but I will continue for the moment. Okay. So we got, in terms of thought groups, we got one on frost, potentially one on die, potentially one on fly away. Who is next? Because I can't see because I'm looking at this. David, are you next?
Yeah, I guess.
Okay.
So,
Where would you like your next thought group to go?
instance.
Okay. And Emmanuel?
After sleep. Then you have like, it's like switching gears. Then he's talking about what he's thinking.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I think if we did after thinking, it becomes more poetic, more contrast, you know?
How?
There's not
Because,
necessarily right or wrong answers here.
you know, more unexpected. It flows a little bit more. The bear is deep in sleep, I'm thinking, versus the bear is deep in sleep, I'm thinking. And what you think?
I was thinking like the bear's in deep sleep. I'm thinking a lot about. Then I'm thinking like you're describing what you're thinking, so that should be his own separate thing. Like you're switching the pitch. Like I'm thinking about this. I'm thinking about sleep translation. Thinking about sleep translation. You know, so I think you're giving the examples, you're giving the groundhog, you're giving the bears, and then your mind suddenly veers off. You're just thinking about this. Oh, this pops into my head. Then that's how I'm picturing it. Like you were talking earlier, Geoff, about this. How was that conscious astral projection
consciousness.
thinking? Yeah.
Not astral projections. It's called stream of
Something like that. Like
consciousness.
your mind just veers off to a different place.
Right. Yes. Yeah, and where would you like the next thought group to go?
Translation.
Okay, I'll chime in a moment. Tina, other thought groups?
I was gonna say after sleep, because I don't think
Yeah.
sleep translation is a thing. I think she's saying I'm thinking a lot of sleep. To translate that, I'm not sleeping much.
Mhm.
But that's at least what makes sense to me.
That's how I interpret that as well. I'm glad you brought that up.
Then it's after much. Not a pronunciation question, but what is the style of poem called when they don't use punctuation? And what is it trying to achieve? With like, say, I'm thinking, and a lot of us sleep are on different lines. What does that do?
Got you. So there's a couple things, and ultimately we can only guess about the decision to not use punctuation. Okay. I think what we find when we lack punctuation is that it allows ideas to kind of flow together more, which can make it for a more challenging read. However, it also opens up the ability for interpretations across lines a little bit more in a way that if you have punctuation, when you have punctuation, it really kind of boxes you in and it focuses you to only be able to interpret things a certain way. Whereas when you remove it, suddenly it can't allow for misreads, but sometimes the misreads are part of the process.
But
You know,
don't the lines themselves serve as some kind of punctuation?
which is another justification for not necessarily having to need to use punctuation because, line breaks can also be used as a tool to pace your reader. And ultimately, that's what punctuation often does. It often is used as a tool for pacing. In terms of a name, I know Tina asked about what the name. I don't actually know. Usually, just say like it lacks punctuation or it doesn't have punctuation. I don't know if there's necessarily a name for the form. This type of poem doesn't rhyme, so it would be called free verse. But beyond that, okay. So we have lots of tools that I want to get into to make sure that we can pronounce things, say things in a way that's effective from a communication standpoint. Okay. Let's begin with kind of what we did earlier and talk a little bit about stress. Okay. Emmanuel, I'll start with you. And feel free, on your own, when you guys are looking for this, don't feel like you have to use the stress markings that we're going to use right now. And feel free to change them as well. Okay, because there's not necessarily right or wrong answers here. It's all about what's the story that you're trying to convey. Okay, so Emmanuel, I'll start with you. In our first thought group, what do you want to stress here?
Another.
Okay. Yeah, and how about in our second thought group?
Doesn't.
Okay. We'll keep rolling. Tina, what do you want to stress in the third one?
Away.
Tense.
Which word?
Intense.
Oh,
Instance. Intense.
instance?
Instance, yep. Yep.
Okay. Emmanuel?
That kind of broke the flow. Because I was thinking of stressing the actual animals, because you were giving the examples, like the groundhog, for instance, the bear. But now, since instance already stressed, I don't know what I should be stressing next.
It's not necessarily right or wrong answers here.
I guess sleep.
Okay.
Has this
Yeah.
become sing-songy? Like every last word of each thought group getting stressed.
We'll find out. Yeah.
Okay, I'm not thinking.
Thinking. Translation's on its own.
Oh, okay. I'm not sleeping. Sleeping.
I think that makes sense. Okay, and then for last thought group, what should we stress?
Champion.
Champion. Okay. Okay. So, like I mentioned before, when we talk about pitches, there's not necessarily right or wrong answers here. There's a lot of flexibility. Okay. So what I'm going to do, let's maybe work with a couple people and just kind of play around to see how they would organize the pitches and things. Okay. Yeah, and I'll pick on you. Can you read for me the first line from another down to away?
Another heavy frost, what doesn't die or fly away.
Okay, walk me through what you were thinking pitch-wise as you read that.
So, stress on another. The first thought group, I start low.
I
Another
think that was your
high, actually.
I think it was your highest.
Yeah, high. Yeah, start high.
Yeah. Okay.
Mhm.
Can you read that first thought group again? Can you do that again for me?
Another heavy frost.
Okay. And then can you read the first two thought groups? Let's see what transition you're making.
Another heavy frost, what doesn't die. Lower.
Yeah, I like that transition. Start high, like another heavy frost. What doesn't die? Can you read the whole line again?
Another heavy frost, what doesn't die or fly away.
Change the stress on me, which is fine. Just so everyone hears that she stressed fly instead of away. So you went higher on the last thought group that time?
Mm-hmm.
Can you read that again for me?
Another heavy frost, what doesn't die or fly away.
Okay, so I think if you compare the way you're reading that line now versus the very first time you read it, like a moment ago, there's a lot more contrast going on, especially between your second and your third thought group, which is good. I do think when I'm hearing that, I think that transition from die to or is a little bit sharp. Is like what doesn't die or fly away. It's a little bit. I think we kind of smooth out that transition slightly. Can you do that again for me?
Another heavy frost that doesn't die or fly away.
Can you say die or?
Die or.
Yeah, that's just to kind of smooth it out. Can you do that again for me?
Another heavy frost that doesn't die or fly away.
No, you went higher before on the last one. Can you do again?
Another heavy frost that doesn't die or fly away.
Can you say or fly away?
or fly away.
Can you read that line one more time for me?
Another heavy frost that doesn't die or fly away.
I didn't like your first two thought groups because the pitch contrast was minimal.
Another heavy frost that doesn't die or fly away.
Okay, I want us to continue. I want you to hear that in the replay a little bit. Okay, but
Okay.
I am hearing pitch shifts between each thought group, which is good. What we don't want this to sound like, we don't want this to turn into another heavy frost, what doesn't die or fly away, because that's very flat, right? We're trying to make sure we avoid that. We also want to make sure we avoid like another heavy frost, what doesn't die or fly away, because now we're getting into kind of monotone. You know, there is movement inside the thought group, but across the thought groups, it's just repeating the same thing over and over again. Okay.
Okay.
David, can you read the second line for me?
The groundhog, for instance, the bear is deep in sleep. I'm thinking a lot about sleep.
Can you do that again?
The groundhog, for instance, the bear is deep in sleep. I'm thinking a lot about sleep.
Okay, that time you read it was a little bit different than the previous time.
It was better, right?
Read it one more time for me.
Oh, gotta change it again. The groundhog, for instance, the bear is asleep. The groundhog, for instance, the bear is deep in sleep. I'm thinking a lot about sleep.
The last one's probably your smoothest. Okay. Can you read that? Read the first thought group in that line.
The groundhog, for instance.
You keep bouncing between sometimes stressing groundhog and sometimes stressing instance.
The groundhog, for instance. The groundhog, for instance. The groundhog, for instance.
I think if you're going to stress instance, then go a little weaker on groundhog.
The groundhog, for instance.
Maybe go a little higher on in.
The groundhog, for instance.
The other thing that's happening too is as you get into instance, your 4 isn't really dropping a pitch. So like 4 in, but that's not, again, what we see very often before stressor is dipping even lower in pitch.
The groundhog, for instance.
You didn't really drop lower on 4. Try to go lower if you can.
The groundhog, for instance. For instance. For instance. The groundhog, for instance.
Okay, can you read that line again?
The groundhog, for instance.
The line? The whole line?
No, sorry. The groundhog, for instance, the birds even sleep. I'm thinking a lot about sleep.
So that, if you read it like that, that's going to sound flat because what's happening is between each thought group, you're doing the same pitch. The groundhog, for instance, the bear is deep in sleep. I'm thinking a lot about sleep. That's I think that's the way a lot of us naturally read things out loud. Okay. And we're trying to break from that a little bit.
Okay. The groundhog, for instance, the bear is deep in sleep. I'm thinking a lot about sleep.
Okay, I could hear the pitch shift a lot on the I'm thinking a lot about sleep. I didn't get it as much between your first two thought groups.
I tried to go lower on the second note.
Then maybe we need to push a little lower then.
Oh. The groundhog, for instance, the bear is deep in sleep. I'm thinking a lot about sleep.
You're ending up in this pattern for that second thought group. So you're trying to go lower, but what's happening, and I'm spending time on this because I think this is a common situation for people. Okay. You're kind of saying like the bear is deep in sleep. So we're getting this bobbing, the bear is deep in sleep. Which means that we're never able to, if you're trying to go lower on that thought group and you're already at a pretty low point, we have a couple choices, but if the choice is to go lower, then we have to go lower. We're going to have to go lower on, if I'm stressing sleep, like the bear is deep in sleep. The bear is deep in sleep. You'll have to go lower.
The bear is deep in sleep. The bear is deep in sleep. The bear is deep in sleep.
Okay, do the whole thing again.
The groundhog, for instance, the bear is deep in sleep. I'm thinking a lot about sleep.
You're ending up at the same pitches. The groundhog, for instance, the bear is deep in sleep. Do you hear that instant sleep? We're at the same pitch level. If you went down, that wouldn't happen.
The bear is deep in sleep. Instance, the bear is deep in sleep.
You're at the same pitch.
Oh. Incense, the bird is deep in sleep.
Sleep.
Sleep. The groundhog, for instance, the bird is deep in sleep.
Your instance and sleep are still very similar. Okay. And if you're truly going lower on that thought group, I would expect them to be at sleep to be lower than instance, not at the same
Incense, the
pitch.
bird is deep in sleep. Incense, the bird is deep in sleep.
What I would say is also another option too, is to take the first. I am the other option would be to take the first thought group a little higher.
The groundhog, for instance, the bird is deep in sleep.
Can you do the whole line like that?
The groundhog, for instance, the bird is deep in sleep. I'm thinking a lot about sleep.
Something like that. Now we're starting to have a little bit more contrast. Okay. All right. I do want to make sure we have time today to talk about some other elements of contrast. Hopefully, this is already kind of giving people a taste of, okay, if I change the thought group, I got to change the pitch level. This is what it sounds like if I'm flat. This is what it sounds like if I have enough contrast. Okay. Does anyone have more pitch-related questions for me before we talk about some other elements?
Like when you compare to thought groups and stressed words, like stressed word, how do you, because your stressed word needs to be like emphasized, but not, I don't know, surpassing the overall pitch of the previous thought group. Like you don't want to break the ceiling.
In general. Because to me, if we go back to the examples that David was doing, to me, like instant, sleep, they really were about at the same cadence, which really gave it a flat sound to me.
Yeah, but
from
the
a listener's
entire,
perspective.
yeah. Like the groundhog, for instance, and then everything needs to go down. The bear is deep in sleep. And sleep needs, even though it's stress, needs to be overall lower because it's within that thought group.
In general, yeah.
What do you mean in general? Isn't that a rule?
There are no rules.
Okay.
It's a language. There are no rules.
So,
Change the thought group, change the pitch rule.
That's a very general guideline, yeah.
sleep is lower than bear and the.
You would potentially expect that. It all depends on how high in pitch you're starting at for the bear. Let's do, because I have several other workshops that focus specifically on pitch. Okay, so I would say if people have more questions about pitch, I'm going to direct you to those because we talked about all kinds of scenarios with pitch. Because there's so many other elements of contrast I want to discuss today, I'm going to move us forward, but people are certainly welcome to message me about stuff. Okay. Our next element of contrast. And I know we spent a lot of time talking about like thought groups and stress words and things like that, but the next elements of contrast will be a little bit faster because we've already laid a lot of the groundwork. We can work with what we have here. Tina, I'm going to slide to you. Our next area that we're going to target is going to be speed. And when we talk about speed, this is another tool that we have for our speech. I don't have to say everything at the same pace. I can slow things down. And sometimes half of a thought group will do this, and then the second half will slow. And that's okay. We want these elements of contrast. And these are honestly things that I think a lot of us are missing in our own talk. So, Tina, I'll let you pick a line here. What line do you think would be fun to experiment with from a speed perspective?
I thought we could do like the groundhog, for instance, like faster, for instance. The bear is deep in sleep, like that.
Okay, read that again for me.
The groundhog, for instance. The bear is deep in sleep. I'm thinking a lot about sleep. Translation, I'm not sleeping much.
Okay, I like it. The second half I was especially drawn to because I think you also gave me a lot more pitch contrast there. Okay.
Mm.
So as we add on these things, I'm going to get more and more demanding of you because I want you to also think about all the things we talked about previously. Okay. So just because we're
Yeah.
focusing on speed, I don't want you to forget everything else about pitch, right? Okay. We got cats falling from the sky, I think.
His pitch is very high.
um, okay. Can you read for me again that from the groundhog down to deep in sleep?
The groundhog, for instance. The bear is deep in sleep. I'm thinking
Okay.
a lot about sleep.
I'm going to read this to you the way I kind of feel like I'm hearing it, and I want you to know
Okay.
what your thoughts are. The groundhog, for instance, the bear is deep in sleep.
You sound like me.
What are you doing?
Oh, like repeating a pattern between the two thought groups.
Yeah. English really doesn't like things being predictable. Anytime it starts to detect a pattern, it's like, oh, get me out of this. Okay. Like the groundhog, for instance, the bear is deep in sleep. I'm thinking a lot about sleep. Translation, I'm not sleeping. You know, if I do that, Berto likes your voice for poems, Tina.
Aww.
Yeah. If imagine that I'm giving a presentation for 20 minutes and this is how I talk. Every sentence I say is going to sound like this. Guys, you need to pay attention to every word I say for 20 minutes like this. Is that okay? Tina, you're going to click out at Zoom meeting.
It's like when you do that, I kind of notice the difference between the way you normally sound. But when I do it, I almost don't know like any other
Yeah,
possible way to say the same thing, like differently.
I mean that's literally why we're doing this. Because I want you to start building the awareness. It starts with noticing it in others, and then we can start applying it to ourselves. Okay, so we gotta break this pattern.
But how? Like how?
You just did it right there. But how? But how? Right? You just did it right there. High pitch. But how? Faster and then lower and slower. But how? But how? But how? Okay. So let me hold your hand through this. Okay. So the groundhog, for instance, the bear is deep in sleep. Where do you want to go fast?
For instance, it's very fast, and
Okay.
then oh, but we're stressing deep in sleep. Deep is the bear is deep in sleep.
I'll let us change. If we need to change stresses, what do you want to stress? I'll follow your lead.
Okay, I want to stress groundhog and bear.
Okay.
And
Where do you want to go fast? Where do you want to go fast?
Like for instance, in deep in sleep. Does that make sense to others?
Let's find out.
Okay.
Can you read that for me?
The groundhog, for instance, the bear is deep in sleep. What
did you do?
I changed the stress.
You
to
changed the stress.
make it different. I don't know how to make it different.
So if I just look at the way you have this marked off for me, you're stressing groundhog, you're stressing bear. Okay. First thought group, higher in pitch or lower in pitch? I think you're doing higher.
Yeah.
Okay. It's like the groundhog.
Groundhog.
The bear. The groundhog, the bear. Is that kind of what we're doing?
Yeah.
Can you say that for me? Like the groundhog, the bear.
The groundhog, the bear.
Can you go lower on bear? The groundhog, the bear.
The groundhog, the bear.
Ooh, okay, now we're getting there. Okay. Some other things that we can do, not our focus for today, but another thing you could do is play around with the intonation. It's like, for instance, maybe if I do rising intonation on groundhog and maybe falling intonation on bear, you're like the groundhog, the bear.
The groundhog, the bear.
I want even a firmer. Give me like a heavy fourth tone.
The bear. The bear. The bear.
But lower pitch. The groundhog, the bear.
The groundhog, the bear.
Too high in pitch though.
The bear. The bear.
The groundhog, the bear.
The groundhog, the bear.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So that's another little tool that you can do. Change the intonation pattern when things are close together. But one of the things that kind of makes me, from a contrast perspective, that makes me nervous about this is
Yeah.
we're stressing groundhog or we're stressing bear.
I changed my mind. Let's stress deep.
Okay.
The bear is
Anything
deep
else?
in sleep. Deep in sleep. Really deep in sleep. Whole thing.
Okay. So you're changing another thing, which is what I was trying to get at as well. So the first one, you stress groundhog and then go fast on, for instance. But what if on the second one, we go fast on the bear is? So if on the first one we go slow on the animal, and then the second one we go, and then the second one we go faster on the animal. Can you try reading this for me?
The groundhog, for instance, the bear is deep in sleep.
Okay, I think the contrast is, I'm liking it more. There's some little things I think are sounding a little bit awkward that I want to kind of balance out, but I think the end result's going to be pretty good. Hijina asked a question about pitch. I'll talk about that in a moment, Hijina. Appreciate your patience. Let's do that first thought group. In the interest of time, I'm just going to give you a model.
Okay. Thank you.
Let's go high pitch. The groundhog, for instance.
The groundhog, for instance.
Yeah. Like imagine like you're a professor, like you were just sipping your tea. You're like, what's an example?
Yeah.
The groundhog, for instance. Can you say
The
that for me?
groundhog,
The
for
groundhog.
instance. The
Wow,
groundhog.
that felt a little weird, didn't it? How'd you guys like it? Did it sound good? Did it sound bad?
It sounds condescending, I think.
Okay. Give me more attitude then. Like this is how we start sounding human. Like this is what we had way more emotion to it. The groundhog.
I think that's why I wanted to do this workshop, because reading from a text is very different. It's very hard.
Yeah,
it's
for sure. It's
different from like just talk normally.
Yeah, it is. So we need to like add some attitude. Right? The groundhog, for instance.
The groundhog, for instance.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Groundhog.
The groundhog. The groundhog, for instance. You know, what doesn't what doesn't dire fly away? The groundhog, for instance. Yeah. Okay. So then we get our second part. Read for me the groundhog down to sleep with everything you know now.
Wait, I thought you were gonna give me a model.
Yeah, but I changed my mind.
Oh. The groundhog, for instance. A bear is deep in sleep.
We're going to go. Oh, we're sliding back. Huh? Okay, yes. That's fine.
I need a model, please.
I'll drag you through this again. That's fine.
Yeah.
So we're going to go fast on the bear is, and then we're going to go slow on deep in sleep, and let's see what that sounds like. It's like, and I think it might be helpful. Let's go from the groundhog down to the bear is, and just kind of show you guys what this could sound like. Like the groundhog, for instance, the bear is. The groundhog, for instance, the bear is. The groundhog, for instance, the bear is. So just trying to drop a little bit lower, but maintaining the same speed. The groundhog, for instance, the bear is. And then I get my stress on deep, and I'm going slow. So what do we know? So again, use everything we talked about, guys. You have all the tools. So you know that when I stress a word, I'm going to go a little higher in pitch. And we've also said we're going to go slow here. So I need to be higher in pitch, and I need to be slow. Okay? I'm just following the directions. That's all I'm doing. Okay? The groundhog, for instance. The bear is deep in sleep. Versus the groundhog, for instance. The bear is deep in sleep. No, I don't want that. You guys hear that? It just loses all the energy immediately. Okay. Tina, do you want to try one more time?
Sure. The groundhog, for instance, the bear is deep in sleep. The bear is deep in sleep.
Let's make sleep sound dreamy. Like let's make it like we're jealous of the bear. Like it's like deep in sleep. Deep in sleep.
Deep in sleep.
Ooh.
Deep. But that's too low, right? The bear is.
I don't know. Let's find out together. Can you read it again?
The groundhog, for instance, the bear is deep in sleep.
Let's give me more of a waiver, like sleep.
Sleep.
Higher rise at the end though.
Deep
Sleep.
in sleep. Wait, what? Rise?
Yeah. Waiver, but rise at the end. Sleep.
Ugh. Ugh.
It feels disgusting.
Sleep.
Like,
Sleep. Like that?
more waiver.
Okay.
Sleep.
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 Sleep. Deep in sleep. No?
You're like sleep. Okay.
Yeah,
More.
yeah.
Appreciate you guys' patience with the connection stuff. Okay. So I want more. So it's not sleep. No, it's like sleep. Sleep.
Sleep. Sleep.
More. Sleep. Deep and sleep.
Deep in sleep.
Deep and sleep.
Deep
Can you hear a
in
difference between deep and sleep and deep and sleep?
Deep in sleep. I can hear the difference, but I don't
Less
actually hear
wavers.
a lot of wavering for whatever reason. I think my ears are not
Deep. Like try bobbing your head like crazy, like
deep in sleep.
It's like the groundhog, for instance. The bear is deep in sleep.
The groundhog, for instance, the bear is deep in sleep.
I think you'll hear this on the replay, I'll be honest.
I think that's the best we've got today.
I don't agree with that statement, but I think for right now, I'll take
Cool.
we'll slide to someone else. I want you to keep practicing that though. I do want you, just comparing to where we started, that's a pretty big difference though, right? So playing around with the speed a little bit. Let me bounce to Higina's question just about pitch. Why the reason pitch only works for English, please? It doesn't work for, how do I put this? This is, all of our languages have pitch, okay? It's not like English is the only language that has pitch. It's not like English is the only language where we change pitches in the middle of a sentence, okay? To be clear, all of our languages do this. In my opinion, we have to pay particular attention to it in English, though, because for a lot of our languages, we have tools that separate words very effectively, whether it's heavy consonant sounds, whether it's tones, things like that really break things up. But in English, because I'm so reliant on vowel sounds and breath and reductions, you know, I can take 5 words and say them in the span of a single word in other languages, you know. So because of that, I need to have some sort of tool that creates separation. And in my opinion, pitch is that tool. Pitch is the tool that allows us to create words. And if you don't do this, it's just going to make you sound flat and robotic. But I'll be honest, these things that we're talking about, you can take a lot of these concepts and apply them to your first language, and you can actually become a more effective communicator too. Maybe not necessarily everything, but a lot of these elements are just communication. Like if you guys ever study storytelling in your first language, you're going to see some of this stuff reappearing. Okay.
But from what you know about Chinese or like Mandarin, this doesn't really happen, right, Geoff? That's why we always sound kind of flat.
I think there's a general tendency to keep things flat, monotone. But I think if you study, and you know, Yan and Tina, you guys are going to be much greater aspects at me than this. But if you study like the greatest like Chinese communicators, like people who are just really good at public speaking, my guess is you're going to find a little bit more nuance pitch wise. You're probably going to find a little bit more nuance in terms of pausing and breath, you know, and effective, like knowing when to pause is a huge strategy, you know, and how you enter and exit those pauses, you know, it's like pay attention next time you're listening. This is for Tina and Yan, but this is, you know, applied to your first, like listen to someone giving a speech in your first language who's really good at it. See where they're at before a pause and then see where they're at after the pause. I wouldn't be surprised if there's some sort of register change. Wouldn't be
Okay.
surprised.
Mm,
I could be wrong. Let me know if I'm wrong. But I wouldn't be surprised.
yeah.
Um, I think we've somewhat solved Hijina's question. God, sorry. My goal is to try to have us out in 20 minutes. That's my goal. But we'll also have some time at the end for Q&A. I want to do one more example for speed. Emmanuel, let's get you in on this. Can you give me a little section here that you would like to work on from a speed perspective?
How about I'm thinking a lot about sleep. Translation, I'm not sleeping much.
Okay, so walk me through your thought process.
I'm thinking a lot about sleep. I'm thinking a lot about sleep. That's fast. Thinking a lot about sleep. Slow down, sleep. And then translation. Then we really slow down on translation. I don't know why. I guess I just
So you want to
do.
go slow here,
Yeah.
and then I'm not sleeping much. Are we going fast? Are we going slow?
Let's go slow. Just for kicks.
Okay. So you want to go slow on translation, and then I'm not sleeping much. You're going slow.
Yeah.
The whole thing, or just specific words?
Stress word sleeping.
What about it?
That was the part I wanted to go slow.
Oh, so you're just going slow on sleeping. Everything else around is going fast.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're going slow here. You want to go fast here. You want to go fast here. How about the first one? I'm thinking a lot about sleep. Where are you going fast? Where are you going slow? Be specific.
Thinking a lot about sleep. Thinking a lot about sleep. I think the whole thing's kind of fast.
There's not a right or wrong answer here. I don't want us to get boxed into the mindset that, oh, I have to go faster. I have to go slow here. I have to do this. You never have to do anything. Okay.
I'm just experimenting.
Yeah, 100%. Okay, so with these markings, you're telling me you're going fast on I'm thinking a lot about sleep. You're saying you're going slow on translation. You're saying you're going fast on I'm not. You're going slow on sleeping. Then you're going fast. Pitch-wise, what are you doing?
The fast part, I think it needs to be low. I think
Okay, so your
first
your
part.
first thought group is a lower pitch.
Yeah.
Okay, low. Translation, higher, low.
Higher.
Higher. I'm not sleeping much. Lower, high.
I think low.
Low. Low, high, low. Okay.
Yeah.
Can you read that for me? I'm thinking down to much.
I'm thinking a lot about sleep. Translation, I'm not sleeping much.
Did you guys get the speed things Emmanuel told me he was going to do?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Want me to do it again?
I'm sensing a lot of indecision from our other two judges.
One more
this
time,
morning.
please. Yeah.
I think a lot about sleep. Translation, I'm not sleeping much. Like speed-wise, yeah, we're talking.
I hear the speed. I think the translation sounds a little.
Yeah, because I need to slow down. That's the slow down part, the red one.
I want your fasts to go faster and your slows to go slower.
Wait, what?
I want you to go faster where you're going fast, and I want you to go slower where you're going slow.
I think a lot about sleep. Translation, I'm not sleeping much.
Get it one more time.
I think a lot about sleep. Translation, I'm not sleeping much.
I don't think you exaggerate as much that time.
I think a lot about sleep. Translation, I'm not sleeping much.
What do you guys think of that?
Better.
You like that more? A little more. Starting to become a little bit more expressive, right? I think when we're thinking about communication, when you think you're doing the thing, whatever the thing is, whether it's pitch, whether it's speed, whatever it is, double it.
Double it.
Yeah. It's like, have you ever like intentionally like recorded yourself on video?
To do what?
Just in general. Because what you find is that if you're like shooting a video, double it and give it to the Tina, ha ha ha. What they say is that like if I'm shooting a video and I want my energy level to be like a level 8 on the video, like I want people to be really excited and give off that energy, that means that when I record it, I have to be level 12 because video is automatically going to take away your energy. And the reality is it's not just video, it's pretty much any interaction you have with someone. In your mind, you're like, oh my gosh, I'm so excited. This is really, but what your viewer sees or the person you're talking to, they say, wow, this was a really good time. Thank you so much.
Exactly. It's when I'm, like really excited about something, and when, like what we're doing in classes,
Yeah.
and I say I'm excited about something. I say, I caught a big giant frog, but when it comes out, like in my mind, I'm super excited about this thing or that thing.
Yeah.
But when I'm watching the recordings, I'm like,
Hey guys,
why am I
caught a frog? Yeah.
Why am I sounding so bored?
Because we're not using these tools. This is why it's communication.
Yeah, but you think you're using it. Like in your hand, you think you are doing the thing.
I know.
That's
we're the best
hard
English
part.
speakers ever. We're the best language learners ever. Like yeah.
And yet,
You got to exaggerate it. Like I would like. So if it's this part, like I'm thinking a lot about sleep. Probably not the markings I were. Like if I were, let me show my markings for this, and then we'll talk about another element of contrast. So if I were doing this part, personally, I think a lot about sleep. Probably going to go slow here. Might go slow on a lot. I'm going to go faster on I'm thinking. I'm going to go faster about sleep. I'm going to go fast on that whole thing. Pitch-wise, what I'm going to do, I'm going to go high. I'm going to go high. And I'm going to go down. Okay. So if I have these markings, if I were going to do this, might be something like, I'm thinking a lot about sleep. Translation, I'm not sleeping much.
Very different.
Loved it.
yeah.
A little too happy, I think. She's
You got
more
the viewers. You still are
Yeah,
viewers.
Doesn't really match the poem, but in a conversation, I think. But
So
But yeah,
that's,
the speed. We got that.
and I also think, so this also, not an element of contrast we're talking about today, but this now we can start getting into irony and things like that. Have you guys ever listened to like the song that like it has a really upbeat melody, but it's about, oh, my girlfriend left me, I lost my job. Like, this
Yeah.
is irony is such it's an advance, but it's such a powerful because it creates just another layer of tension. Because it's like, what do you believe? Do you believe the body language and things like that? Do you believe what's being said? Like, you know, when it's done with intentionality. And I think the other thing keep in mind too, this is the beginning of the poem. This is the start. Okay, so like when you start a presentation, when you start reading out loud, your listener has no idea about what's about to hit them. They have no idea. So like, I don't have to lull them into the heaviness just yet. I can make them think that we're gonna take this like nice little train ride, and then I'm gonna hit you later, right? It's the
Yeah.
build
Kick
up.
them in their teeth.
Because if I don't do that, and if I just say, guys, another heavy frost doesn't tire. If I do that for like 5 minutes, that's really heavy, right?
Yeah.
You know, I got to take you on a journey. You know, like how's this? Like if this poem starts off like with same words, but like if you're like smiling and stuff like that, you're like, oh, another heavy frost. What doesn't tire? You know, like you can add,
Are you Elsa?
and then like it can become really tragic.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it can like really I think it can make the poem feel a lot more tragic in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
Because and then like as you get through the poem, what if you gradually become more serious? Like you start off really happy, but then like by the end of the poem, you're like, no, you know, what's the journey? Hijina says you can do whatever you want. You can do whatever you want with intentionality. You know, you have to own what you're doing, and I think that's the thing we're afraid of. We're afraid to commit to the thing that we want to do. We want to convey excitement, but we're afraid to convey excitement, so we do it feel safe, so we don't convey excitement. You know what I mean? Like the more you can lean into it, the more you can do. One last tool that unfortunately I'm not going to have time to go in as much as I would like to on is volume. And I've said this, you guys are all in my group class, so you guys are already familiar that I am a huge proponent of the understatement. I think the super bombastic, like, wow, like crazy, good. Wow. I think that in a lot of ways is a lot less evocative than the, wow. Like, I think that in a lot of ways actually conveys in the right situation a lot more emotion than the super crazy. But a lot of this also depends on personality too, you know, because if you're a person who doesn't usually express a lot of emotion, but then you do like that, wow. Well, I mean, that can be very powerful because normally that's not something maybe you would say. Okay.
Yeah, but what does it convey when I say it like that?
It depends on context.
Because if you go
Did you
like,
ask? I'll read a section of the poem before we head out.
go like, wow.
Too fast. Well, because like, can you hear a difference between wow and wow? Can you hear a difference?
Yeah,
Those don't mean the same thing.
exactly. That was my my question. It might mean different things if you say it like that.
Yeah.
Like you could
Secret.
whisper, it doesn't bring excitement, you know, like wow, you really done that. You really did it. Wow, oh, I can't believe you just said that. Wow, you know.
Oh, wait a minute. I've
doesn't-
never heard you do that in class before, by the way. Just a note.
The wow
just a-
thing.
Yeah. Like the way you just said wow a second ago. I've never heard you do that.
Well, I need to have like the right reaction. I need to be pissed or mouthing to actually react like that. And I don't know.
Okay.
Really happy.
Find what
in
you're looking
classes.
for. Okay.
But I'm happy in classes, man.
Okay. I mean, there's positive ways to do it. Anyways, let's go to volume. I want to slide to David. David, can you give me a line here that you'd like to play around with volume a little bit?
From the lines we've already read.
If there's a different line that you would prefer, we can do that.
The last sentence.
Which one?
The last one.
Like if you survive that one?
Mm.
Okay.
So, am I supposed to do something?
Okay, all right, read that last line from if. Actually, you know what? I'll give you a part to start. Can you read from your house down to sobbing?
Your house burns down, so what? If you survive, you rake the ashes sobbing.
How do you feel about that?
I said I didn't want to cry today. I don't I feel good.
She
I'm
says, so what?
satisfied.
Your house burns down? So what? Walk me through your thought groups.
Down.
Okay.
So what?
Okay.
Survive. And that was it.
Okay. Read that again with these thought groups.
I read it exactly with these thought groups.
Okay.
Your house burns down. So what? If you survive, you rake the ashes sobbing.
What are you doing speed-wise?
I'm doing some stuff.
Do you mind sharing?
Like, I don't remember how exactly. Like first thought group, kind of a regular pace. So what was a little bit faster. Maybe the fastest. Yeah, the fastest. If you survive faster than the first thought group, even, and you rake the ashes sobbing, the slowest one.
The entire thing or just specific words?
The entire thing. Sobbing was really dragged out.
And it's sobbing extra slow. Okay.
Yeah.
Please keep in mind, everything we talk about is not just at the single thought group level. It's every word is an opportunity to play. Every single word. Okay.
But like, if we have a stress word and you are doing different speed stuff with the other words of the thought group, we might create some different separate thought groups, right?
Okay. To make more thought groups. Does that solve your problem?
All right,
I
so
never said don't add more. Add more.
all right, I gotta read it again.
Please.
Okay. Your house burns down. So what? If you survive, you rake the ashes sobbing.
That was not what you did on the previous ones. I think you
Yeah.
did more with discussion.
Yeah.
Okay. I like that
Yeah.
one more.
Yeah.
What you doing pitch wise?
Low. It's not low. I don't know how to put the arrow in the first thought group, but the second is higher.
Okay.
If you survive, a little bit lower, and again low, high, low, low.
What are you doing volume wise?
Volume is on the first thought group is high, then low, high, and low. Exactly like that. High, low, high, low.
What words are you loudest on? What words are you quietest on?
sobbing is the quietest and burns down the loudest.
So you want to be loud here.
Mhm.
What are you stressing?
Burns down,
You gave me 2 words. I want 1 word.
down.
Why?
Because your house burns down. I know. I thought I could create more contrast with stressing on the verb action here.
Okay.
Maybe I'm wrong. I don't
So
know.
you said burns down. You're stressing down. What if you stress burns?
Mm.
Read it 2 ways. Read it the first time stressing burns. Read it the second way stressing down.
Your house burns down. Your house burns down. Yeah, I like the first one, I guess.
I like the first one more.
Yeah.
Now, some of you are going to already know what's happening in some people's minds. Some people are like, Geoff, it's a phrasal verb. You stress the particle.
know us too well.
And you forgot that English doesn't have rules as guidelines. I think this is going to sound a lot better if you put stress on burns. Personally.
Isn't this like, I don't know, like preacher talk? This loud, quiet part, you know? Your house burns down. So what if you survive? You rake the ashes sobbing. Repent.
Is this why we don't do this stuff, Emmanuel?
I-
Because we associate with preachers?
I don't know. This one, this particular, this loud and quiet. Just.
I mean, I think, granted, I think that the topic of burning and things like that also can lean into that. a
it
bit.
was just.
But
it was just funny.
I liked how you read that, Emmanuel.
Yeah, I know. I've been. Cause
Hijina liked it as well.
thank you. Like to be fair, like I've been like imitating like preachers. I come from a Christian family.
Yeah, I know
So
you got the religious stuff coming. So yes, there could be
Yeah,
some
so
of
I
the
have
elements,
this.
but I think this gets back to the idea that a lot of the stuff that I'm talking about, we're all capable of. Your voices can all do this, but I think we have associations that, for whatever reason, we avoid. And the more that we can break from those and just do the thing instead of being afraid to do the thing. Again, I really believe pronunciation is a fear issue. I don't think it's a body or psychological thing. I think it's fear. But let's go back to David. Let's go loudest on burns, and let's go real quiet on sobbing.
Your house burns down. So what? If you survive, you rake the ashes sobbing.
Can you say right? Can you do me a waiver on survived?
If you survived, if you survive,
Can you say vived?
vived, vived,
I have more of a waiver. Vived, rising at the end.
vived, vived.
Okay, do it again. The whole thing.
Your house burns down. So what? If you survive, you rake the ashes sobbing.
You didn't do what I said on survive, but the rest of that sounded good.
I did. Survived.
That's not-
Survived.
Survived.
Survived. If you
Better.
survive, you rake the ashes sobbing.
Yeah. The other thing is that you told me that burns down is going to be your loudest moment, but so what is louder than that?
Yeah. Things change.
We all
Sorry.
do. Okay. Did you want to try one more time for me?
Yeah. Your house burns down. So what? If you survive, you rake the ashes sobbing. Rake the ashes sobbing.
I want you to whisper. So what?
So what? So what? So what? So what?
Do it again from your house. The whole thing.
Your house burns down. So what?
No, you told me burns down is gonna be the loudest moment.
Was it? Wasn't it?
Don't tell me it's an all I can eat restaurant and then I can only have one plate. Don't you do that to me.
Your house burns down. So what?
Softer. Softer.
So
Whisper.
what? So what? Your house burns down. So what? So what? If you survive, you rake the ashes.
Survived.
Survive. If you survive, you rake the ashes, sobbing.
Too heavy on sobbing. Go lighter. Do it again.
Sobbing. Your house burns down. So what? If you survive, you rake the ashes, sobbing.
Getting there. Do you guys hear it?
It's getting so emotional.
I like it. Yeah.
It's like surreal. Is my house burning?
Good. An element that we didn't talk much about today was pausing. I think that if I were going to continue working with David, for instance, on that last part, we would add some pauses.
Mhm.
Probably after burns down.
Yeah.
I think that could be very effective. Body language, communicate. That's a whole other thing too. Is what are the gestures? Like, do you guys ever watch like stand up, like comedians? Like, do you know how often they rehearse their set? Like every part of their set, like every part, down to like where are they gonna walk, down to what's the face they need to make when they tell the joke, down to where do their hands need to go. I think that when you guys are, if I had to read this poem out loud, like if I had to present this poem, I'd be thinking about all that stuff. Okay, when I say this line, what does my hand need to do? Where are the moments when I need to look at the audience? Where are the moments where I have to go loud? And where are the pauses? You know, all these things. Everything. I do have to head out in a moment. But does anyone have any kind of just general final questions for me besides, Geoff, will you please read the poem?
Kind of a lot of things to juggle. Like all at the same time.
It is if you've never juggled. I mean, once you know how to juggle,
you can juggle.
they
One,
can do 5
2,
things, 10 things. Like, once you know how to juggle, you can add as many things as you want.
I do want to say I like this poem a lot more after we analyze it more. I like the sarcasm and kind of just
it's
laugh at the world. Yeah.
It's super cynical.
Yeah, and rating things. I love rating things.
Yes.
Like, house burns down, so what? Like all of that.
So what? You just if you survive, you just rake the ashes. Sorry.
Yeah.
It's like, oh my god.
Who cares?
Yeah. It's like, who cares? But it's like, I care. You know, it's like kind of balancing like both of them. It's like, I'm gonna pretend not caring, but I actually deeply care. Like kind of.
Yeah.
It's such a good poem. This is only like the first half of it. But she's great. If you like this poem, you may like the. She has a whole book called Headwaters. That's it's so good. But yeah, there's a lot happening here. Other
But in audiobooks, I don't
questions.
think they sound like that. They're boring. In most audiobooks.
I don't recommend audiobooks as learning tools. I'll be as listeners. I don't think they read it. A lot of people read it like they don't sound conversational. Most audiobooks.
Bible audiobooks does. There's a lot of movements there.
You know, don't get, like they bring in like, you know, great voice actors and stuff like that, but like they don't sound. You can tell you're listening to an audiobook. You can tell you're not listening to a conversation.
But they may be good at storytelling.
For sure. You know, but if I'm trying to become better at conversational communication, I personally can't recommend an audiobook to someone. Personally. But like
I recommend the Harry Potter series.
Harry Potter?
Yeah.
Is there a specific, like on audiobook, right? If you have a specific whoever read it, if you have a specific person, feel free to post that. Other general questions or things for me?
Drum roll. Boom, 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 boom.
It's fantastic. Thank you, Geoff.
Thank you. Now for the big reveal.
How would I read
Geoff himself.
How far am I reading to?
10x exaggeration.
You sound more human than the rest of us, so I don't know. You should,
Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you Geoff
God.
Anderson.
It's like, goodbye.
Ah! Come back. Hey.
All right.
Don't you run away now.
All right, so this poem, this is Sleep.
Don't fly away.
I won't fly away. This is Sleep by Ellen Bryant Voigt. Another heavy frost. What doesn't die or fly away? The groundhog, for instance. The bear's deep in sleep. I'm thinking a lot about sleep. Translation? I'm not sleeping much. Who used to be a champion of sleep? Ex-champions are pathetic. My inner parent says the world is full of evil, death, cruelty, degradation. Not sleeping? Scores only 2 out of 10. But a moral sense is exhausting. I'm exhausted. A coma looks good to me. If only I could be sure there'd still be dreams. It's what I miss the most. Even in terrible dreams, at least you feel what you feel, not what you're supposed to feel. Your house burns down. So what? If you survived, you rake the ashes, sobbing.
That was so good.
You're a
Bravo.
natural, man.
Yeah. I felt the pathetic. Like, it was right in my face.
You got to be a little sharper there, like pathetic. Like just like cut it with the breath. Tends to
That's
draw
why I
us in.
think Geoff can be a voiceover artist.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you,
Totally.
guys. I appreciate you. But that's how I would read this poem.
Kind of different than what we were trying to achieve. So,
You mean what we were talking about in class?
yeah, what we talked about the whole class.
Keep in mind in class, I'm trying to demonstrate 4 or 5 different techniques, so we're going to modify some stuff.
We
Yeah.
read it we read it faster. Way faster, actually.
I don't necessarily disagree, though I do
Yeah.
think there were moments where it's slow. All right, guys.
I like your goal was to finish the whole poem, but our goal was to finish this page, so we had more time to.
Our goal
do-
was to focus on specific sections to try to
Do more
practice.
reference.
Okay, this is what we do. It's like if you focus on pitch. This is what it's like if you focus on speed. But so I mean, hey, my challenge for you guys is everything I just did. All of you can do. This has nothing to do with pronunciation. Okay, it's entirely about breath work, pitch work, and things like that. Any one of you can do this.
And what? The whole thing?
This isn't the poem. This is the pitch
The
stuff.
performance.
The skills we worked on today.
I was just thinking of the poem.
Yeah, I understand. So it's not just. Let me rephrase. Every time you talk to someone is another opportunity to do this stuff.
Mhm.
Every single time you talk.
Oh, really? So every time I talk, we can play with volume. We can play with speed.
I
We
wish you
could-
would. I wish you would.
I wish I would too. I wish I would.
Me too.
Anyways. Remember, is if your house burns down, what? Just rake the ashes. Grow up. Just rake them sobbing. It's not a big deal. All right. Hijina asked, "Do we think the poem is good for shadowing practice?" I would focus
Poets
on.
are good for shadowing, maybe, right?
No, most poets are horrible at reading. I'll be honest. They're really bad. They sound like they're reading.
Oh,
They sound like they're reading. Same thing with audiobooks. Just like I said, I would shadow like conversations. Most of you, when you speak in English, you're going to be using it for conversations. So I would focus on conversations. But I would try to pay attention to this stuff in conversations because this stuff is happening. Maybe not to the same degree, but it's all happening. Okay. All right. This has already gone way over what I thought it would, which is fine. That's how it
it's gonna continue. It
is.
seems like it's gonna continue.
As soon as I have the course posted, you guys will all receive it. Any final thoughts, feedback?
What about those dance show? I forgot how do you call it? Like when they sing and dance and they tell a story in that forum, right?
Are you singing
Like
and
musical?
Musical movies, like
Like
I don't know.
musicals?
dancing?
Yeah.
Are you trying to sing and dance?
Potentially. Right.
Like just do more of the thing that you're working on. Like if you're trying to get better at emails, then write and read emails. If you're trying to sing and dance, then sing and dance.
I'm just picturing David in a musical now.
Jeff teaching.
I'm not teaching a song and dance class. Promise you. You do not want that. I will spare all of you that.
That's
trauma.
what I clicked out of this meeting.
Well, it's funny you say that because no, I'm just kidding.
What
I
was
will take off my leotard, turn on my
Take it
stage
away.
lights, the disco ball drops in the background. Just all happens. Yeah.
Okay, let's wrap this up.
Yes.
Please.
All right, I know we have dogs to walk and things like that. I will see you all later. Thanks for being with me. I appreciate you guys. Guys in the chat, thanks for being with me too. Thank you all. I will.
Bye.